Well, how many? Everybody? So it looks like everybody's in. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. I was just worried about that first batch of folks who were early birds. So the early birds are all in, and the birds are still flying to the nest, like Julia right now is coming on in.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time because we've got a jam-packed session today from what I've heard. So welcome to our presentation, All Means All, an inclusive practice of environmental education. We also with us today is Hugh Corolla, who's co-hosting with me, Kelly Wenzel, the president of ANJEE, and also interested in this topic. We're excited that you are with us today for today's workshop as part of ANJEE's 38th annual winter conference. A special thank you to our conference sponsors, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, an anonymous donor who is a friend of science and environmental education in New Jersey, and the Institute for Natural History Arts. We'd also like to thank our keynote sponsor, Nigerian Associates, our award sponsor, Duke Farms, and BASF for supporting our field experiences. Also, we have placed the link to our YouTube channel in the chat, where you can see all of our recorded content from past conferences, forums, and other sponsored events. We hope you subscribe to our channel. Just a few reminders for the session. We ask that everyone keep themselves on mute through the presentation. If you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat. Again, there's a lot of content today, so Huey and I will be monitoring that. And hopefully we'll have a little time at the end of the presentation where you can ask Kate some questions. So just quickly, our presenter today is Kate Reilly from Duke Farms. Duke Farms is a leader in environmental stewardship and inspires visitors to become informed stewards of the land. A key ingredient to engaging in this mission involves connecting pre-K to college level learners with diverse learning needs to environmental resources in an inclusive, multidisciplinary manner aligned to New Jersey student learning standards, school-based objectives, and mandated climate change curriculum. Specific examples of All Means All will be provided, including designated quiet zones, accessibility, managing logistics, programmatic concerns, and more. So Kate, feel free to introduce yourself and get started.
Okay, so Kelly, do I need to share my screen again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so here's the gymnastics of it. Okay, did that work?
Yep, you got to do your display settings again.
Oh my goodness. Okay, hold please. You know, when Kelly and I practiced, like it all worked, and now of course it isn't. So,
and then I kicked her off.
Yeah, so it's not going back to where it was. Do you see my next slide? Is that the problem?
Yes. So okay. I think you did display settings in the middle there.
Yeah, I'm not getting the toolbar on the bottom.
Oh, was it on the top? I see it on the top.
Okay. No. Let me see. Hold, please. So inclusive also means like working with people who can't find toolbars. I'm not getting it. Let me try it again. Oh, I lost the toolbar, so I don't know how you can help me.
I don't think I can.
No. There's no toolbar on the screen. That's what I'm.
Yeah, so I can see it like on your screen above
Yeah, I'm
the
not.
slides, but you can't see it.
So yeah, I'm not getting it, so I can't attach to it.
No worries. We can see it big enough to see the big photo. So you can just go ahead, Katie.
Does that help or no?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm not in charge of technology at Duke Farms, so I guess you know that. But I'm pleased to be here. I'm the manager of education, and I have about a 45-year background in public-private schools and rural city schools, rural schools, suburban schools, and so forth, working as a teacher, science teacher, supervisor, principal, curriculum and development person, and then came to Duke Farms about 6 years ago. So I just want to start out by saying that all of what you're going to be seeing is a accumulation of many, many, many years of work. People who came before me as educators at Duke Farms, you know, management, all sorts of different people, you, the public, other educators, and so forth. So this is just not my work, it's the work of many. And it's also not the only answer. This is what we're able to do at Duke Farms, and we understand that in various locations, you may have different ways of going about things, different challenges in logistics, different challenges in what your property holds, and so forth. So these are just some ideas as a story starter for your thinking, and then also some resources to know that I think we're all in this together, and we want the best experience for all of our learners. And that's kind of how we started. You know, we started with the Grant Wiggins method, a research method of saying, you know, what is the backward design of this? What are the big ideas? What are the essential questions? You know, how do we enhance our visitors' experiences? Are we approaching our visitors in the appropriate manner? You know, if we say we want everyone to be included, who is the everyone? How is that defined? And what does it mean to be inclusive? Is it age? Is it socioeconomics? Is it culture? Is it ability, disability challenges, all sorts of things? So, you know, one thing that we came together to in agreement is that we want the very best for our visitors. We want to know that we're approaching things through multidisciplinary method, although environmental education is really multidisciplinary when you really pull it apart. And we just want people to participate in their learning. We want them to be engaged. We don't want to be talking at people. We don't want our classes to be point and shoot. You know, this is this, this is that, this is that. We want them to really feel like they're part of the learning. So some standard just lessons and regular education lesson design is what we've applied. And then what is our overall message to people? What are the behavioral objectives? What do we want them to be able to know and be able to do when they leave the property? So embedded in all of our classes also, we have aspects of climate change. Not only is it mandated in pre-K 12 schools, as you probably know, but it should be a part of as many lessons as possible in our public schools. And also, you know, I'm hoping that in what I've seen in a lot of nature centers is some really spectacular lessons in climate change education, which is of course important, not just for the learning at that moment, but for lifelong learning, to make sure that our citizens are informed when they vote, and then also empowered to be able to make subtle changes, small changes, and also big changes. We've also cleaned up our language a lot. We used to talk about, you can do this in your yard, you can do this at your home. And we understand that by saying that, that's a turnoff for a lot of people. You may live in a skyrise, you may have a patio, you may have a balcony, but you can still participate in a collective agreement that environmental education is important. So, those are kinds of the story starters for what you'll be seeing. If you haven't been to Duke Farms, that's the iconic visitor center, the orientation center. It's called the Farm Barn, houses a classroom, which my education department does not use. So we are 100% outside. It rains, we're outside. It snows, we're outside. We have very little shelter, because I think that part of the experience that we agreed to, especially for children's classes and also adult classes, is for them to be outside. It's environmental education. We're going to use our outside classroom, which is Duke Farms. And why wouldn't we, with the 2,740 acres of property, 1,000 acres open to the public, 18 miles of trails? Why are we inside doing a PowerPoint when we can be outside? And it works out most of the time. We do have some classes that are canceled because it's just the wind shear is taking, small children up into, blown away. We want to make sure that people are safe. But, experiencing a little rain and experiencing a little cold and experiencing just the beauty of nature is part of what we want people to understand. So, we're a nature sanctuary. There's lots of interest at Duke Farms, 18 miles of trails, as I say, 9 lakes. That aerial view, I think, is spectacular. So when we talked about accessibility, there are some common things that I'll be showing you. I have a lot of slides, so lots of pictures. Parking spaces, paved pathways, shuttle services, and so forth. So in this component, we're just talking about some of the features of accessibility and a lot of it pertains to mobility. So general parking signs, as you'll see, they're throughout our parking areas. We want to make sure that people get as close as they can to where they want to go. That is a pretty standard procedure in most locations. We also, though, brought information outside. So instead of having people come into the visitor centers and asking a lot of questions, we set up this kiosk, especially on a Saturday, where we have more people coming in, and visitors and volunteers can engage in a conversation about, where they are. A lot of people come, they don't know where they are. They don't know what we are. They don't know what to expect. So by bringing it outside, it creates kind of a more comfortable way that people could approach the property and figure out what they want to do. So instead of waiting for them to come in, which we still have a beautiful assortment of materials in our visitor center, we go out to them. And just by setting up this little table and having some people with maps and so forth has really welcome. It's a sign of welcome to all who come. We are very fortunate, as I said, to have 18 miles of trails. 12 miles of them are paved. And you can see this nice flat paved surface. So lots of room on the road. We're not, kind of like having to zigzag around people and so forth. But even our pathways through the meadows that are natural pathways, you can see they're in pristine condition. And once again, this doesn't come just from the education department. This is stewardship, operations, motor pool, volunteers, security, all these people working to make sure that our land is really ready for visitors of all sorts. We also have the advantage of having an electric vehicle and accessibility shuttle. That shuttle, as you can see, is extremely well designed with the ramp, security and motor pool and visitor services, we all work together. There are people who can make a reservation and use that accessibility shuttle to get to a point on the property, and then also schedule to come back. That's an important aspect also. So, you know, this is used quite often for people with all sorts of challenges. Remember that the property is large, so it's very difficult for some people to get from one point to the other. And most of our property, as you'll see, is across the street. We do have professional crossing guards and so forth, but it's still, you know, a big property. Even our outdoor bathrooms, you know, we've really thought through that one step. It doesn't look like much of a step, but if you're carrying 2 children, or one on the front and one on the back, or if you have, you know, a cane or a wheelchair, that's the reason that you cannot use the outdoor bathrooms. So we've thought through our access of even the bathrooms and so forth. Multiple entrances to our gardens. That's the entrance to our meditation garden, but then there's another way to get there as well. So we're trying to make sure that there are multiple points of access to some of the standard and you know, some of the highlights of the property. Here's a picture of the property, and you can see that, you know, it's quite large. That's about 1,000 acres there. You know, I was really surprised when I started that people don't recognize when you say it's a mile away or it's a half a mile away. I don't know whether a lot of people have that in their head. Like, what is a mile? And certainly a mile is different when it's 110 degrees outside in August, and, you know, or on a nice spring day when it's maybe in the 60s. So we use this chart on mileage quite often, but what we have found is that people really don't recognize the miles as much as we say, you know, maybe it'll take you 10 minutes to walk there, or maybe it'll take you about 20 minutes to walk there. Many people kind of have that in their head more strongly than what is a mile and a half or what is 2 miles. But we also have a virtual map with turn by turn directions available. So for those people who need not just the map, but you know, right here, left here, we have all of those directions as well. And we found that a lot of people kind of use both. We have audio tours and informational text that's available. So you can go into an audio tour and go through the property by listening to some of the highlights and some of the things that you'll be seeing. And then you'll also be able to see this information in text. So once again, multiple modalities, right? Not just one way, but trying to figure out whether both or people selecting one or the other would be important. Even our benches have been really thought about. You can see that some benches have the sides and some are open. What we found is that there are people who can approach those benches in different ways. Say, you know, if they have a wheelchair, but they also can approach it in other ways. So, you know, I think that even our benches, and actually one is a donated bench, all plastic from a group called Roots and Shoots. That's 100% plastic bench. The school children, they collected plastics, had the bench made out of the recycled plastics and donated it to Duke Farms. So even our seating has been thoughtfully designed. We have a wonderful bike share program. It's huge, hundreds of bikes, lots of different, you know, cruiser, beach style bikes, and, you know, all sorts of different kinds of bikes. But, you know, the one that really gets a lot of use is this, this trike bike, which is, of course, great for people who maybe are a little uncomfortable on a regular two-wheeler. So people can very affordably rent those bikes out for about 2 hours. And it's a great way to see the property, but also we understand that many people do not have bicycles themselves. And so this is another approach towards, looking at people's socioeconomics or just the logistics of having a bunch of people, 5 or 6 people. How do I get the bikes in the car? How do I bring them to Duke Farms? So it's a very popular program, and it increases the access to kind of some of the further locations at Duke Farms, because it's quite a hike to be able to walk around that big loop. Not only for people, once again, with mobility devices, but our community garden is wonderful. You can see that it's a bricked area, so it's not a wibbly wobbly place for people to walk. And having those garden beds up really helps lots of people. It helps children with a really close-up view of what's growing instead of bending down and looking. And even people without mobility challenges, it's just a kind of an ease of access. So those have been increased in our community garden and are very, very popular. So this is a story about just kind of asking what we're not doing and where we can find additional information, because I was really concerned about the numbers of people who are sensory challenged. The noises are too loud, there's too much going on, and so forth. So if you really take a look at the autism numbers in New Jersey, they're quite high. And so a lot of people move to New Jersey because we've got great schools and wonderful special education teachers and wonderful programs. So, it could be 1 in 35 students, it could be 1 in 50 students, depending on the numbers that you're looking at. But it's still a lot of people with kind of invisible challenges to sensory aspects as well. People with post-traumatic stress disorder, people with just sensory overload. So I started asking around, like, how can we get the training? What should we be doing? And somebody just said, hey, you know what? The Philadelphia Eagles has a great room, an area, and they just started it a couple of years ago, and it's really fantastic. And it kind of gives people a break if they need it from the stadium, from all the things that are happening in the stadium. So I contacted their director. She was wonderful, and she connected me with Culture City. And Culture City is an organization that really focuses on sensory inclusive needs. So in other words, there are lots and lots of people, adults and children, that cannot really go to places because the noise is overwhelming, or it's just there's too much going on. Culture City also offers a lot of really excellent training. So it's important for not only educators, but people in visitor services and other people who engage with the public to kind of understand what other people might be experiencing that we would not be able to experience in the same way. So we were connected with Culture City a couple of years ago. And as you can see, there's 550 or so locations in the United States and in the world that have become certified through Culture City. It really is an initiative about sensory sensibility or invisible disabilities. And we do have sensory bags on loan at our front desk. And, sometimes people think that they're not going to experience what they experience, but, our visitor centers, it's noisy, sometimes. So we find that some people like to check these out, and included are, quiet noise canceling headphones, fidget devices, also communication devices that they may not have thought to have brought. And I just think by just having this, it makes a statement about Duke Farms being open to all people. So even if you don't use these devices, even if you're not the one who maybe a family member isn't going to want to use these, by having them out there and by making a statement about the fact that we are concerned about all people, I think that makes Duke Farms, it's a public statement about how we care and how we are working towards a more inclusive environment. And even some of our benches have this marking, which just is an indication, an affirmation that, we're working with Culture City. Maybe people Google it and see that we're really, really involved. We are on the map as well. So if somebody is looking for a place where their family member might feel comfortable coming, or perhaps a school might feel more comfortable knowing that we have this background, I think that being on the map is of critical importance. So we've all gone through training. The training is very simple, video, PowerPoint kind of thing, but it really lays the groundwork, and it establishes this recognition that we don't see the world through the same set of eyes or ears. So that is something that we're pretty proud of at Duke Farms, not just in education, but in kind of an integrated way through our staffing. So what types of programs do we have and resources at Duke Farms? Well, quite a few different types of classes, because once again, we're trying to appeal to a very varied audience. We never know who's going to be interested in coming, and we also want to pique the interest of those who have not already attended or come. So we have lots of different field trips, pop-ups, guided walks, and so forth. Some of our guided walk programs really come from individual designs. In other words, we don't really have a canned program. We are very proud of the fact that we're able to manipulate our curriculum, and we're also able to have a lot of resources for our content. And we are also able to adjust timing, time of day, duration of program, and so forth. So even with large groups, we're able to accommodate them, because although we have a very small education staff, we do have an incredible, wonderful, fantastic group of volunteers who assist. But we do a lot of integrated programs as well. And this was a non-guided program. We didn't directly teach this program, but here's a school that came because we had a humanities teacher, local humanities teacher, who liked our wall. It's the wall in the farm, our hay barn area. It's a beautiful, beautiful wall. But he used this for allegory of the cave, Plato, and so forth. So we're not just open to environmental education, we're open to multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary types of topics. And I thought that this, we set up some shares. Some of our staff members attended this gentleman's seminar, and it was just absolutely wonderful. But it started with him coming to Duke Farms and just saying, I need that wall. I need that wall as part of our program. We also have a lot of teachers who come that, they have their curriculum, they know what they want to do, but they're looking for other resources. So we're able to connect them to these other resources, and then they come in an unguided way. Of course, we can do a short orientation and so forth, but they build their own lesson from what they want to accomplish, and then we can bolster that through our other resources. Pop-up education is throughout the property. There's one that you can see right here with Alex Rodriguez, who is one of our interns. We have such a wonderful program during the summer. I was able to have 2 education interns each summer. Alex is, he's a mucker, so he really wanted to get involved in kind of the aquatic aspect of ecology. And so he set up this wonderful macroinvertebrate table kind of at one of the cuts that go back to our brook. But these pop-ups are throughout the property. So some people walk by and they don't want anything to do with it. And some people are like, oh, what's that? So, we want people to not only hear the message, but we want them to see the manipulatives and kind of like be intrigued to come over and learn a little bit more. We have about 45 pop-up topics right now. These are some of them, as you can see. We like to set up things for people to do. So once again, we're not talking at them. Even, single people coming in families or groups or so forth. We want them to kind of say, hey, what's that? And pick up maybe a hand lens. People don't commonly do that. dissecting microscope or something along those lines. So we want them to have fun, and we want them to kind of be engaged in this learning process and not just be passive, passively just being talked at, so to speak. We design most of our own materials. Some of them are bought, but we really like to kind of hone in on what Duke Farms is and what our watershed is about. So a lot of our printing is done in-house, and our designs are from the educators themselves. Even simple things like, if you see on the bottom there's a sleeve, a plastic sleeve, that has saved a lot of paper, because we use these sleeves. The paper doesn't get ripped up by people, handling it or picking it up or whatever. So we try to also cut down on paper. We do not hand anything out. We do not hand any paper out to anybody. So that's like one of our rules. But we do follow up often with digital resources and email and so forth. So if somebody's really looking for something, we can email it to them, and then they can decide whether they're printing it out. But we are a carry in, carry out, leave no trace facility, and no paper comes from our education department. The maps we give out very sparingly, and now that we have a beautiful app and a way for people to access it on their phones, doing less of the map handouts. We also have a lot of visitors on Saturdays and Sundays, but on Saturdays we have a ticketed program. Tickets are free. You just have to register and get one, but it kind of caps the number of people that we have on a Saturday. So, it's kind of like the balance of too many people, less engagement, really, because there's just too many people. And are those people who are coming seeing crowds of people, and can you really enjoy nature that way, versus slightly lower attendance, where we can have time to talk to people and people can enjoy the property in a different way. Simple things, very simple things. We've had adults and children and all, everyone kind of playing games, looking at a shadow box, L pellets, such a common thing to do in schools. But, how many people have done it outside of maybe school children right now who have done it maybe at your nature center or in your classroom? So the adults, I think the adults really are drawn to those things as well. We have to remember that not everybody comes from the same type of background, the same access, and being in some schools is different than being in other schools, and sometimes budgets are really limiting in terms of what schools can do. So some of the games look like they appeal to children, but we've had sometimes a stronger response from the adults. We also have speakers that educators that are throughout the property. So here's one at the Great Falls, and you can see that it's a very casual assemblage of people. We all have really loud voices saying, "Hey, gather around, we'll talk about this or that," and then people assemble accordingly. So some of these are planned and some of them are not planned. On the right side of that slide, that's Victoria. She's a student teacher at College of New Jersey. She was one of our other interns this summer. Fabulous, really fabulous, working with small children. But on the other side, you can see people in waders. There are not a lot of people who have been able to, put on waders and go out into a little brook. So the vantage point of being in the brook and looking out is different than being on a river bank, a stream bed, and looking in. So we try to change people's perspective and understanding about what nature exploration is really about. As you can see, it's a very small class. We try not to, negatively impact anything that's happening in the brook in terms of, little critters, macroinvertebrates, fish, frogs rather. But, just by having people step into that water is absolutely unbelievable what people have said in terms of their perspective. So we try to mix it up and alter people's perspectives as they're learning, and kind of like piquing that interest. A lot of people work Monday through Friday. They can't get to programs, so that we do programs after hours. I don't know what after hours really means because Duke Farms does programs at all hours. So, it's kind of difficult talking about nocturnal animals and it's 12 o'clock noon in the sun. So, we do those programs in the evening. We do moth programs in the evening. We kind of say, when is nature at its highlight? And then we tailor programs to what's happening. We've gotten a lot of really positive comments from the fact that, we will offer programs after hours and then also into the weekend. So we're trying to provide other access for people who have family obligations, work schedules, and so forth. So you can see that there's a lot of make and take activities also. I don't call them crafts. There's, anthotypes with native plants or making, upcycled milk jars into a winter sewing activity and so forth. These are all, once again, we want people to be involved and engaged. Some people are not auditory learners. They have to see things and do things to be able to connect to it. So that tactile presence is extremely important for us. On the right, you see a student. We're not afraid to use a 3-man slingshot to hurl out seed bombs into the meadow. We're talking about seed dispersal and so forth. You can see everybody's in slickers. There's umbrellas. We're outside in the rain. That's part of the fun as well. We do virtual programs. We do live streams. So I'll have one of the educators like in the middle of the meadow, walking through the meadow, talking about what they see. Some things are planned PowerPoints, and then also virtually, we've done programs, in a bilingual format as well. But the Zooms into classrooms are really fun when we're doing a live stream because we're really not sure what we're going to see. And that kind of is an open-ended exploration because, let's face it, when you're outside, you don't know exactly what you're going to see. And that's part of the discovery. That's part of what we want people to know and students to understand. We also, of course, do professional development programs. I believe some of these pictures were just at the fall conference for ANJEE. But the other aspect that has really been important for us is that I've done programs for school administration. So superintendents, principals, vice principals, science supervisors. Often it's the teachers who are advocating for their students to come to Duke Farms. And if the administration doesn't know what Duke Farms is and does, then there's a disconnect. But so we have hand-tailored programs for those administrators. I know that it would have been helpful for me when I was a school administrator to make decisions based on, being someplace, having that experience, knowing who's going to be there. I would have been more comfortable making those decisions and also understanding the resources. So we have started at the top, of school administration in terms of trying to make those connections with folks who are interested in learning more. And it's been very successful, especially with directors of special services and so forth. Lots of virtual resources. Of course, our Eagle Cam is very, very popular 24/7. We do a lot of Zooms with classes on the Eagle Cam. It's not like you're going to go visit the eagle nest. So, this is all virtual. And there's, is it just about the eagle? No. We use that as a hook to understand ecology, so many different features. So it's, it's a target, but it also broadens the discussion. And quite honestly, I've been, I don't know how many of these we did last year, maybe 30, but we never know what students are going to ask. And what I've discovered is that some of the students with whom we've worked, they watch us all the time. So, I've been caught off guard where they said, hey, 3 days ago, I saw this eagle do this at this time. What do you think it is? And I'm no idea. It is just absolutely amazing what some of the students are picking up on, and we're learning from them as well. we're on Instagram, YouTube channels, so forth. So once again, in terms of access, we're looking at all the different areas of how we can connect people to the environment. And also we have a distance learning portal that, I don't know, there's 100 on here. I think there might be more than 100 resources that we have. They're all organized by theme and topic. Some of them have links and resources and links to other things and links and activity pages and games and children's literature and so forth. So we've really tried to bolster what we offer on our distance learning portal. Of course, the signage is strategically placed throughout the property. And we also have free materials for people. So once again, looking at the socioeconomics, or just like, are you going to buy a $200 pair of binoculars to use once? Hopefully they'll use them by, this one time, and then they're going to go out and try to find some for themselves, right? Because it's going to be so much fun. But these eco kits are on loan for free, and as our Eagle kit is loaned out to schools or groups, at a free basis. So what types of groups do we welcome? I think we welcome a lot of different types of groups, from behavioral health centers to special needs schools. We've worked with the Department of Children and Family Services, extended school year programs, gifted and talented, Spanish magnet programs, all sorts of gen ed, private, public, all sorts of different programs that are just, kind of hand tailored once again to the school's objectives. And then also, we're really, really happy about this Raritan River School Partnership Program that we started about 5 years ago with Manville Schools. Manville's a neighbor of ours right across the street. And they have been, over time, significantly impacted by climate change. If you've seen anything, it's about the flooding and all sorts of damage that has happened to the school. So we started this program about 5 years ago, and we've recently welcomed South Bound Brook, not a K-12 district, but a primary elementary district, into this, where their students come to Duke Farms at least one time a year for a specialized program. So over time, these students, say in Manville, will come for pre-K, K, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 12th grade. So a student who's staying in Manville will have 14 different content exposures, 14 different explorations, 14 different experiences at Duke Farms. And we think that this sustained effort will positively impact what students know and want to learn about. It will impact their identification of how they are environmentalists and how they can make a difference. And then we're hoping that it creates a more informed society of voters. So we're really, really happy about this program. We've still been working on it. We have Manville coming with ESL groups or math groups, or all sorts of different kinds of specialized peer-to-peer groups with special education and so forth, and then now with South Bound Brook as well. So this is a newly named program that's been in existence for a number of years, and it's kind of growing. So I just wanted to showcase that because it's one of my it's a wonderful program. And Manville Schools, great school district in South Bound Brook. So there's a shout out to them and their education team and administration. We've also worked with twice exceptional school explorers, such as this group, where we learned a lot about the differences between native and invasive species, right? You think you know a lot until a group of students comes and then says a lot of things that you've never really thought about. So, we really love working with different schools and educators and so forth, because once again, we're lifelong learners and we're always adding a little slant into what we do because we've used that information from others. Here's an ESL lesson that was done in both English and Spanish from our Manville group, about 70 students in the ESL population. And it was really interesting because they're global citizens. They came from a lot of different places. They came to New Jersey. Some of them have only been in the United States for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So having them have a global perspective on climate change coming from their own backgrounds was extremely interesting. And, you know, that conversation that evolved was just absolutely fantastic. You know, even small things like, you know, sugar maples, and we're talking about the range of sugar maples, you know, taking a look at where we are in Hillsborough and looking at climate over time, are we still going to even have them growing in our area? I mean, that's something that we asked the students to investigate. So we try to embed topics in climate change in pretty much everything that we do. We're always modifying the curriculum. And so sometimes it starts with just, this is our group registration form, it's a JOT form. But when this comes in, I contact the educator. You know, I personally email them and say, hey, we're really glad that you're registering. Let me find some time. Maybe we can talk about who's coming and what you would like to have your students know and be able to do at the end of the program. So we're always modifying things because I think the one thing that we learned is to listen. You know, we need to listen to the people who are coming, whether they are a group from another nature center, whether they are a school. We need to listen to what they expect. Sometimes the expectations don't match, but having that conversation is really important. So rather than just saying, okay, they're coming, and then we tell them where the buses are, and we say, hey, and then they're on their own, we've really spent a lot of time engaging in this conversation. And I think that that has been a critical difference, you know, most recently. You know, we put things on our calendar. We have all these calendars. Some of them are unguided groups, some of them are guided groups. But each of the submissions, you know, I keep calendar notes so the team can see what things should happen and how we're going to organize it. You see that in the modification for group, like this was a live stream. We even live stream into classes before groups come. So some teachers like that, some groups like that, where we spend 15 minutes and say, hey, these are some of the people that you're going to see. This is where you're going to park. This is what you're going to experience when you walk outside and see the farm barn. You know, it's a way for us to meet the educators. It's a way for the teachers to ask some questions, like what do I do with a lunchbox, or, you know, just logistical questions that come up. Sometimes spending 15 minutes with them in a Zoom or some kind of a chat is what really makes that experience at Duke Farms so much better, because they know what to expect. They can also ask questions about specific children needs and so forth. So we've had a lot of success managing things this way. We also bring people to where the question is. For example, this one slide is the Barack Obama Green Charter High School, where I challenged them to ask us the question, and that we would help answer that question. And they would help answer it themselves. So, you know, their question was about, like, you know, how many deer are killed on highways, and, you know, why are there so many deer? So we brought them out to research woods to talk about deer populations and forest ecology. Another group asked about why can't I buy something at a grocery store and put a plant out, a flower out, I don't see any bees, like, why is this bad, or why? You know, so we had them come to our native pollinator garden, and we talked about natives and evolution, and, you know, why some insects just, you know, talk about access, but the flowers don't work for them. So, you know, having an outdoor classroom also involves the little guys, and here's a really nice little setup that was added in the community garden for our youngest learners, talking about, we use this a lot, talking about fruits and vegetables and growing and eating healthy. We also know that not everybody has everything. So, you know, it's a rainy day. As a parent, maybe I didn't pack the raincoat and now my kids, you know, going on a field trip. So we have ponchos that we hand out. We hand out binoculars, all sorts of field guides. So we want everybody to have what they need. And we're very fortunate to be able to supply those to people who are, you know, forgetful, or maybe they don't all have the same things coming to Duke Farms. We also connect in, as I said, in an interdisciplinary way. The book Hatchet was a read that all sixth graders did in one school district. So I designed a program along with the education team using the protagonists of Hatchet, using kind of a survival theme for them to explore the different habitats of Duke Farms. So we're able to, they didn't really know what, you know, how to connect it. And we just played around with the book a little bit. And I think it was really cool for the kids to come and kind of experience that you know, the book in a different way being on the property. So that was a really fun curriculum switch. These are a little group of students that were interested in vet science, and we did a veterinary program. You know, lots of students don't know that large animals also require vets, and you know, so when we have a group such as this one, it was the first group that we had this way, but you know, we use some of our animals from our agroecology department as highlights for this program. We also modified a lot of displays. We do our own printing, we do our own design, but we're pretty cognizant of, you know, text, too many words, not enough words, the word size, colors, and things like that. And I think that we're getting a little bit better with this. It was something that we hadn't highlighted before. But we also have lots of materials that are out in different languages. Those Mandarin boxes were designed by one of our interns a few years ago. And, you know, I think it's just welcoming to see things in different languages in different ways. So it's not just multi-modalities, it's also different languages and different highlights that we're able to present. A lot of our groups come with interpreters, nurses. These people are just, you know, part of the collaboration. Like I need to know from the interpreters and from the nurses and other people who support the students that come here. I need to know what their biggest fears are. We need to know what they need. So instead of saying, we don't have this, we don't have that, we say, what do you need? And then we try to work it that way. This is one of my favorite groups of students. This is a program, a specialized program where young women can complete their high school diploma with their babies or toddlers or being pregnant. So it's allowing middle school and high school students in this county to continue their high school education, get a diploma, but also have their children with them. So, you know, when we have this group here, we've got a lot of strollers. You know, I think that in this case, there were maybe 10 or 11 babies that came with their moms who are also high school students and middle school students. So, you know, we're really, really excited about this program. They come about once a month, and it also has a literacy program attached to it. So they each get a nature book, an environmental nature book, so that over the year, we're building a library for these little ones that they're bringing. So just as a recap, you know, I think we had about 6,000 people at our pop-up tables last year. This is kind of an estimate. We had about 73 schools, about 3,500 students. And, you know, that's kind of where we're working. But, you know, I think that we're getting better every year. And I think that we're very open to suggestions. So I'm hoping that people who endured this number of slides and me like talking at you, which is against every educational research, you know, I'm just hoping that you have ideas that you can send to me or that we can work on together, because it is a collaborative process. And we know that we haven't hit all of our marks, but we're really very focused on trying to do our best. If you have something, as I said, to share with me or with others, that would be fantastic, because I think that we're all in this together about you know, just trying to do our best and include as many people as possible. So I think that's it. Now, I don't know how to get this back to where it needs to be.
So up top, you should see
Yeah, I'm not.
stop sharing. I think I can stop your sharing. There we go.
You can, yeah. Did you just make me go away? Yeah. There you go. Thank you.
Well, that was great. That was a lot of information. We do
Yeah,
have a couple.
sorry.
No, and we do have a couple minutes
Okay.
for questions, and there's a couple of things in the chat. So Anne was saying, and Anne, if you want to unmute and explain more, to make QR codes instead of emailing. I forget exactly what you were referencing, if Anne is still on the call. I think Anne's popped off. But there was a point where you were saying.
What did I do wrong?
You muted me, Huey.
I
There was a
did.
point in which you said that you emailed participants documents or something, and something when Ann and I worked together that we had done was made QR codes that then people could scan.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've been using more of those. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and they're easy to generate now. The closed captioning that was going on during the Kate's presentation is something that I turned on in Zoom, I think.
Really?
So you can check that out. Huey asked, can grandparents volunteer for the program with moms and babies?
So we work with each individual group, and so if it's okay for that group to have grandparents with them, then they're there. If it's not, we kind of use the parameters of whatever group is visiting, what their rules are, and we don't change those rules. We work with them on those rules, unless they're completely not something that's going to work.
Right.
I don't know whether that helps.
Melanie asked how many education staff you have that are actually full-time, part-time.
So we have seasonal staff, we have part-time staff. Right now I have one full-time educator. When I'm fully staffed, I'll have one full-time educator, one part-time full-year educator. I believe 2 seasonals who are working 9 months, and then 2 interns who are there for the summer to learn. So it's a small department.
Yeah, and your model at Duke is a little bit different than most other nature centers as well, right, Kate? So you're not
in terms of staffing.
Yeah, because there's the self guided aspect as well, correct?
Well, we offer the self-guided aspect, and we accommodate people through once again, listening to their needs and so forth. So we encourage them to become empowered to present themselves, because we feel that that's a sustainable model. So if I'm teaching teachers or helping them feel more confident leading groups, then they're going to come back and do that. And so I think that is part of the model. And we just have a small department, but we also have a lot of resources. So we have, and this year we're going to have rangers who are security people, but they also have an instructional aspect. So, once again, it's a very collaborative circumstance at Duke Farms.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think you have a little bit different. You have a lot more resources. Maya asked, what funding sources do you mainly use to fund these type of programs? But I think it's the Duke Farms Foundation mainly, right?
It's the Doris Duke Foundation. And so all of our schools come for free. All of our outside classes and so forth are very modest. They're $5 or $10 or something like that. And, we have a lot of advantage being under the big globe of the Doris Duke Foundation, for sure.
This is actually a great question, and you know, we can love our spaces to death. And I know even though Duke Farms is large, you all had this issue with balancing the number of visitors with your conservation efforts. So the one question was just about that. You know, how do you balance the needs of conservation on the property with the needs of the population coming in?
It's a great question. You know, it's a great question. And I think that this is the first year, you know, out of the 6 years that I've been there, you know, we started keeping a number of people down a little bit on Saturdays because it just became too crazy. You know, people are like, well, I haven't seen any animals. Well, why? Of course not, you know? So we've kind of ticketed, you know, we have tickets and it's free, but you still have to register. So that keeps the numbers down. There are some days that it's a little overwhelming, but I think that overall it's been on the target as a very important question in terms of, you know, making sure that people's experiences are great. Also, you don't want to walk around in a horde of people and then say, I haven't seen anything. So I think it is a delicate balance.
Does anyone else have, we've got like 1 minute, 30 seconds left. Yes, and someone noted also in terms of accessibility and making sure the areas that you want to use and teach in are accessible to your point.
Absolutely.
What is your max allowed on weekends, just out of curiosity?
I don't have that. I'm going to write down that email, or maybe I can capture it. I'd like to get back to that person about that. I don't want to misquote a number, but you know, we're open, you know, like 8 to 4, 8:30 to, you know, in the summer we're open later. So those hours changed. We're also closed on Mondays. Sunday the trails are closed, so we've moved those those days around as well.
Yeah, and I remember, I think Michael Catania at one point when you all first opened the core to the public, he, you know, it was tens of thousands of people on a Saturday. It was a lot. It was a lot.
I would just say that there is a lot, and then, you know, you throw like bikes in there and, you know, all of that, and so we've really changed that around a little bit. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're at our end of time. So I just want to say thank you again, Kate, for your presentation. It was fantastic, a lot of information in there, and we'll be touching base with you after. I am going to, or actually Rick or Hugh, can one of you post the evaluation link in there?
Don't have it handy.
Let's see. I think
I can say thank you though.
I clicked it open. I think
Kate for a wonderful job, and to the entire staff at Duke Farms. You guys just are the gold standard. So thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure working there. I'm hoping that your cat enjoyed it as well.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. He's got one functioning brain cell, as most orange cats do. And yes, he was having a good time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hugh.
Excellent. So thanks again to all of our donors, and thank you all for attending, and hope to see you in a couple more sessions. Thank you again, Kate.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. See you later.